So I did my undergraduate studies in Chinese, and I came across a book by Mantle Hood on the very bottom shelf of our library, a little bit dusty. It was called, I think, the Ethnomusicologist. And this was towards the end of my undergraduate studies. I was wondering what to do. A lot of my peers were going off into to working in big business, and that really didn't appeal. So that book came as a bit of a lifeline. I'd always been a musician, a performer, and so the possibility of combining then my studies with my passion for music was wonderful. So I already had this interest in moving beyond the narrow confines of the UK. You know, I had quite a sheltered suburban upbringing, and so I'd taken that choice already at undergraduate level to study another language, to spend time in another country, and so it was really the bringing together of those two interests. So having discovered Mantle Hood, I went off to Beijing, actually, in China for a year, and I studied in the Central Conservatory there and started learning what Chinese musicology meant at that time, which was a great experience. And I spent a couple of years actually in China doing a lot of traveling, meeting a lot of people. And about halfway through that, I discovered SOAS. SOAS, the School of Oriental and African Studies in London. It's part of the University of London. So I went to meet David Hughes, who was a professor of Japanese music, and decided to do my master's studies there. The Chinese program was meant for Chinese students who would be studying Chinese music, and it was you know, it was less than ideal, because the classes I was taking, they were mainly laid on for performance students. And so these were students who specialized in performance on a Chinese traditional instrument, an erhu, a guzheng, and they were required to take courses in Chinese traditional music, the history of Chinese music, and they were extremely unengaged. And so that was quite an alienating experience. I didn't really enjoy that time in the conservatory. I would say that Chinese musicology, Chinese ethnomusicology, has changed enormously in that period, and we now find so many young Chinese researchers with a very kind of outward-looking mentality. They're absorbing theories, they're absorbing new forms of practice, they're really engaging with the wider world of ethnomusicology. And of course they're using this new kind of theoretical lens to engage with their own traditions, and also traditions around the world. So there's been a massive change since my own study in China. Going back to SOAS, so when I finally rolled up in SOAS, that was a good time. My master's, I found myself in a small community, but a very bonded and very energetic community, who were engaging with music primarily from Africa and Asia. So that is the focus of SOAS still today. And there was a huge emphasis on performance as a way of understanding music and a way of engaging with communities, I would say. And so I did a lot of learning to play new kinds of music. I did a lot of engaging with performers who are based in London. You know, we have a lot of diasporic communities there, and also people who are passing through. So probably my most interesting project to date has been a recent project called Sounding Islam in China. And that really speaks to the way that my own kind of research trajectory has developed over the past 20 years now. So I started out working on things that we would more traditionally understand as music. I was interested in the classical music of the Central Asian Uyghurs, people living within China, but who are Muslim and ethnically different from the mainstream. So it was really through the experience of doing field work. I had the opportunity to spend some time in some villages, working with rural people, and I became interested in the kind of expressive practices that really animated that community. And those practices were not things that they called music in the community. It was really about religion, and particularly because I was spending more time with women at this point, and it was particularly problematic for women to do things that were called music. So I became more interested in Islam. So my project then, Sounding Islam in China, was a collaborative project. It was interdisciplinary. I was working with gender studies scholars and anthropologists, and also ethnomusicologists. So that was a project that was very interested in the experience of rural people. And this project then came at a very difficult time for the people I was working with, because it coincided with the whole rise of the narrative of terrorism and extremism in China. And so the project then became a study of the rise of new forms of Islam, so more kind of orthodox forms of practice and ideology coming into the region, and then the Chinese state project to de-extremify the people that I'd been working with. And so I found myself faced with a very difficult situation then, in which some of my local colleagues were detained, in which I was denied visas, and many of the women that I'd been working with are still today presumably being detained in these internment camps. So that produced then a whole set of decisions to be made, moral decisions perhaps, about what I should be doing with my research, how should I be engaging with the political situation, and how could I best support communities in the diaspora. So I mean, it's not quite highlights in the sense of, you know, having fun, but I think that this shift into a more kind of engaged ethnomusicology has been the most important thing that I've been doing to date. So a more recent project actually, which then builds on those experiences, is a project now we have running with the Uyghur diaspora in Kazakhstan, and that is framed as a sustainable development project, and we're working with communities there who are now very concerned with the project of sustaining their culture and language in the diaspora at a time of national crisis. It really is that opportunity to hear the younger scholars talking, I think. I mean, there's a big community of practice here, and really I get a great sense of excitement about the way that the new generation is coming up, you know, so that is a big pleasure for me, and I learn from it. Certainly in the UK, subjects like ethnomusicology are particularly under attack. We've always been a very marginal kind of sphere, you know, but with the rise of really the commercialisation of education in the UK, there is now increasing pressure on students to take topics which are going to lead into good jobs, you know, so there's emphasis on what we call STEM subjects. There are students are pushed in the direction of science, of hard subjects, you know, which will benefit them and benefit the economy. So this is the neoliberal narrative that we're facing. And so how do we push for the importance of ethnomusicology in this kind of situation? For me, I think it really is about moving back to that practice of ethnography. That has really always been crucial to my experience of research. It's been crucial to the way that I understand the world, really. So ethnography then is about that one-to-one engagement, that kind of radical relativism, I suppose. I'm quoting Deborah Wong here, I think. I think that really has been crucial to my own understanding as a scholar, and I think that's what's central to ethnomusicology and gives it a value, because it is about understanding the humanity of people across barriers. And so I think that is crucial. Of course, ethnomusicology shares that with the sister discipline of anthropology. And so I think for me what's particularly interesting about ethnomusicology at the moment is that whole kind of nexus of sound and placemaking and power. So here we're moving away from our alliance with anthropology and then towards an alliance perhaps with sound studies. But I think that kind of nexus then is producing some of the most interesting and exciting work within the discipline at the moment, and that really is where I situate my own understanding of what's going on within China and for the Muslim peoples of China at the moment, and how I engage my own scholarship in what's going on there.